This video provides general instructions for how to look up prevailing wage rates for public works projects in Oregon. Unless otherwise exempted by state law, prevailing wage rates, often referred to as PWR, are the minimum wages that must be paid to all workers employed on all public works. Whether you are a contractor, subcontractor, public agency, or a worker on a PWR project, it is more than likely that at some point during the life of a project, you will encounter the prevailing wage rates. This tutorial will guide you through the process of looking up rates for specific construction duties performed on PWR projects and answer many of the most common questions. Let's begin with the tools you'll need to get started. When looking up a prevailing wage rate, you'll need to consult two BOLI publications. First, you'll need a copy of BOLI's Definitions of Covered Occupations for Public Works Contracts in Oregon. You'll use this definition book to find the classification that most closely matches the work duties you're looking for. Next, you'll need BOLI's Prevailing Wage Rates for Public Works Contracts in Oregon. This rate book will tell you the rates for your project. I'll explain what you'll need to do, and by the end of this video, you'll know how to find the prevailing wage rates you need for your project. Don't have a copy of these publications? Contact BOLI's PWR unit to receive a free copy, or visit our website where you can freely view and download these publications. In order to find the appropriate rate book with the rates for your project, you'll need to first gather some information. You'll need to have the answers to the following questions. When was the project first advertised for bid? What type of work is being performed by the employee? Where is the work being performed? I'll show you how to use the answers to these questions to find the correct rate book. Then, I'll show you how to find the specific prevailing wage rates you need by answering the following questions. Is there a rate listed next to the classification in the rate book? What to do if the rate book directs you to see Appendix? What are the rates for apprentices? I'll discuss each of these questions in order. But before we begin, it's important to note that just because your project is a public works project, it may not necessarily be subject to PWR law. There are certain preconditions and exemptions that may result in PWR law not applying to your project. If you need assistance determining whether or not a project is subject to PWR law, prime contractors can ask the public agency that is contracting for the work. Similarly, subcontractors can contact either the prime or the public agency to learn if the project is subject to PWR law. As always, if you need assistance, you can call or email BOLI's Prevailing Wage Rate Unit with your questions. Now, let's get started. For most types of prevailing wage rate projects, you will need to know when the contracting public agency first advertised the project specifications for bid in order to determine the correct wage rates. Generally, this date determines which BOLI prevailing wage rate book you need to use for the duration of the project. As I mentioned earlier, each year, BOLI publishes two rate books, one on January 1st and one on July 1st. Amendments and corrections to these rates are issued every April 1st and October 1st. If an amendment or correction is in effect at the time the project is first advertised for bid, then you must use the corrected rates. For example, if a public agency first advertised a project for bid on February 6th, it is subject to the January 1st rate book. But a project first advertised for bid on May 1st is subject to the January 1st rate book and any corrections or amendments published on or before May 1st, including the annual April 1st amendment. You can find all of BOLI's rate books, amendments, and any corrections on our website. As you can see, when looking for the correct prevailing wage rates, it is important that you are certain about the date the project was first advertised for bid. Please note that if your project is subject to both state and federal prevailing wage law, is using a CMCG, is a public-private venture, or is a residential project, then additional provisions or rates may apply. If any of these conditions are true for your project, and you are unable to locate the correct rates, you can call or email the PWR unit for assistance. Now that you know which rate book to use, The next step is to determine if the work being performed is subject to prevailing wage rates. To do this, you'll need Boley's Definitions of Covered Occupations for Public Works Contracts in Oregon. This book contains definitions and descriptions of all the occupations of work on a prevailing wage rate project. These occupations are also referred to as classifications. The definition that most closely matches the actual work being performed by a worker is the appropriate classification to use for PWR purposes. Once you know what classification you need to look up, it's time to turn back to the rate book that applies to your project and find the correct rates. Inside each rate book is an Oregon map that shows the different prevailing wage rate regions, divided along county lines and numbered 1 through 14. To find which rates apply, you'll need to know where your project is located. Find the region number associated with the county where the project is taking place, and then turn to the appropriate region in the rate book. Next, find the classification that you are looking for in the list of occupations. Is there a rate listed next to the classification? If so, then you've found the applicable prevailing wage rate. Use this rate, both the basic hourly rate and the fringe rate. It's the combination of these two rates that make up the hourly prevailing wage rate. Here, in this example, the applicable rate for a boilermaker is a basic, or base, hourly rate of $33.92 and an hourly fringe rate of $23.34. Therefore, an employee performing the typical duties of the boilermaker classification is due at least $57.26 per hour in total compensation. Unless the employee is a registered apprentice or trainee, this is the minimum hourly rate that an employer is required to pay. I'll explain what rate to use for apprentices a little later. Before we get to that, we'll learn when and how to use the rate book's appendix. So, what do you do if the occupation directs you to see appendix? If that's the case, you'll find the appendix located in the back of each rate book. The appendix rates are based on the collectively bargained rates and are used only when the region list instructs you to see appendix. Remember, first make sure the region rate doesn't apply before turning to the appendix. In this example, the region list instructs us to see the appendix for asbestos worker insulator. Find the appendix in the back of the rate book. It begins with a table of contents, with the occupations listed alphabetically. Remember, some occupations have different group numbers, and if you're unclear which group number applies, refer back to the definitions book. Now, we'll go through a couple examples so you can learn how to find the correct rates. Let's begin with the asbestos worker classification. Find it on the list and go to that page. In this example, you'll see that the hourly base rate is $48.67, and the hourly fringe rate is $22.12. Remember, it is the combination of these two rates that make up the hourly prevailing wage rate. Some occupation rates in the appendix include zone, shift, and/or hazard differentials. This is typically referred to as premium pay, and it's added to the hourly base rate. For example, the appendix rate for iron workers includes a zone differential determined by how far the project is located from the reference city, or the residence of the employee, whichever is nearer to the project. After determining the mileage and the correct zone, you add the corresponding premium pay to the base hourly rate. For instance, a project in Eugene that is 110 miles from Portland is Zone 4. Therefore, a $10 per hour premium zone pay with a maximum of $80 per day is added to the employee's iron worker base rate. However, if the worker on this project lives in Eugene, then no premium zone pay is required. Be aware that the methods for determining premium pay vary depending on the occupation. So read the language in the appendix closely, and call Boley if you have any trouble determining the appropriate rate. Finally, what are the rates for apprentices? Bona fide apprentices may be paid a percentage of the applicable prevailing wage rate for the work they perform, so long as that work is consistent with the apprenticeship or training standards for their program. That exact percentage is determined by how far along the apprentice or trainee is in their program. Please be aware that while an apprentice may receive a percentage of the journey level worker's base rate for regions where the appendix rate does not apply, apprentices must be paid the full fringe rate. In this example, the region list includes a rate for a carpenter. Therefore, using apprenticeship guidelines, a carpenter apprentice who has completed 70% of the required hours necessary to become a journey level worker must be paid at least 70% of the base rate plus 100% of the fringe rate. However, if the region list directs you to see appendix, like it does in this example for cement mason, you may use the rates BOLI publishes for apprentices plus any required premium pay. These PWR apprenticeship rates are published 4 times a year and are available by calling BOLI or visiting our website. Need help? Don't worry. We're here to assist you with any questions you may have about prevailing wage rate law requirements. Give us a call or send us an email. We look forward to hearing from you.